You're in the Red Zone, live from Sports Page Grill in Ashland on this Monday evening. The sun's shining, looks nice outside, although a bit humid, but we're just used to that by now. But it's going to look a lot different before this week, unfortunately, is through. Before we wrap up tonight, we'll review all the changes, and we've had a new one come in while we were talking with Coach Bishop. Benedictine Fork Union, they've moved their Friday game up to Wednesday evening as well. But right now, really excited about my next guest because we wanted to tackle this subject head on. A couple of years ago, my involvement in this subject began with a 3-part series of articles that I wrote for the former Hanover Herald-Progress back in early 2017. Thankfully, even though the Herald-Progress suffered its demise back in the spring after 137 years, I was occasionally smart, and one thing that I actually got right was we also posted the 3 articles, and they are still archived at HanoverCountySports.net. We talked with Carly Suber, who was part of that great Atlee girls volleyball team from the early 2010s, who got a scholarship to and played 3 seasons at the University of Virginia before deciding to retire before her senior year. She was suffering from depression during her time at UVA. Then there's the story of Austin Cannon, former Atlee football lineman standout who went to Virginia Tech. And the conversation I had with Austin and our guest here in a moment, we will talk quite a bit about that connection, was just unbelievable. He was very open about his suicide attempt back in 2016 and how the intervention took place to save his life, and now how he is trying to reach out and help other student athletes not only in Blacksburg but across the country. And then we also had the opportunity to speak to Grace Gallagher and talk about the Speak Up Foundation, which has become very widely known in the last few years, trying to help teens in the issue of mental health. And we want to talk today a little more specifically in the area of student athletes and mental health. And that's why I've brought on Betsy Cutler, CEO, College Wellness Programs. Betsy and I met online in conversation with the articles that we wrote, and we've been wanting to get together for ages and talk, and tonight we finally have an opportunity. Betsy, welcome to the Red Zone. Good to see you.
Well, great. Thank you for having me here. It's such an important conversation. So on today, Global Suicide Prevention Day.
That's correct.
It all worked out, I think, to be me here and have this conversation. Precisely.
Now, first of all, your background and your passion for this subject. Just kind of tell me how all that developed.
Well, my background was in psychology, and I managed programs over at St. Joseph's Villa right down the road, and then became a mom and had 2 high school athletes. And at that point, I started looking at what was going on in the college world in regards to mental health. And upon that investigation, I found, sadly, there wasn't a whole lot. And that really put me in a position where I felt like I needed to do something about it. With my background in programming and psychology, I felt like I needed to really ramp that up, and I went back to school, got my master's at VCU Center for Sport Leadership, where I focused on collegiate athlete mental health. I did some research and had found some really good information and wanted to make sure all of my conversations, all of my programs, everything that I did going forward was data-based. I wanted to look at the research, analyze the research, look at my research so that I'm building stuff that really meets what our athletes are saying they need.
On your Facebook page, here's the introduction. It says, dedicated to helping college athletic departments incorporate mental wellness as a curriculum. Now, we know when somebody tears their ACL on the field. We know when somebody twists their ankle or separates their shoulder. But we can't tell in the glitter and the glitz, let's say, of Division I college football. None of us could tell last January when Alabama came back and won the thrilling championship win over Georgia, that there might have been a couple of players there from Alabama, while they were celebrating on the outside, they were struggling on the inside. Tell me how difficult it is to be able to reach the student athlete at the college level.
Well, I tell you what, there are a number of issues that prevent you from reaching those athletes. Obviously, I think the number one is stigma. Our athletes are busy trying to meet their ideologies of what people think they should be. And because of that, they are struggling being honest with other people. And my guess is probably being honest with themselves. We're asking 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, to talk about what's going on and what kinds of signs and symptoms they may be feeling. And guess what? They have no idea what those are.
Right. It's bad enough, especially with males in that age group who are averse to kind of talking about feelings and whatnot. But then you put on that added layer, Betsy, that I don't think a lot of people understand is that, well, if I think I have a problem or I think I'm different, if I don't understand what the possibilities are, how can I even begin to go down the road to find someone who can help me identify what's going on?
Bingo. That's exactly what's happening. And beside that, they don't know where to go. And I think, with as you said, you just read what my goals are. And part of my advocacy is that I would like to see an embedded clinician in every Division I athletic department. I know that's probably financially not an option, but there are things that they can do to create that awareness and that accessibility for our athletes. They just have to be willing to listen and decide that that's important enough.
Is it also a problem that sometimes it's the gatekeepers who are 40 and 50 and 60 years old, and this wasn't talked about back when they were 20, and so this isn't an issue that we really need to worry about, therefore create a position, therefore fund? Are there issues trying to get past the gatekeeper?
I would say that's yes, absolutely to that. I think because of, unfortunately, all of the incidences that we have seen, the high profile, the Helinskys and the other things that are going on, that our athletic directors are at least getting to a place where they feel like clinicians are important. And I respect that, and I think that's great. But once again, I feel like that's more reactive and not proactive and not programming. And if we can get information and knowledge into our athletes, I think that we will be putting them in a much better place than having them react and us trying to help them post-issue.
For those who don't know the story that you just referenced a moment ago, tell our audience about it.
So Tyler Helinski was a quarterback at Washington State, had a fantastic, he had to jump in at one of the last games at Boise and just created this awesome comeback, and they ended up winning, and it was just this amazing experience. Unfortunately, in January, unbeknownst to anybody, no signs, no anything, he took his own life. It was crushing and devastating, and I've been contacting every once in a while with his mom, and it's just still very, very raw for them. I don't know if anybody watched Game Day, College Game Day this past Saturday. Their experience was there with the ESPN writer Maisel.
Oh, Ivan Maisel, sure.
Yeah, and so he did about a 5-minute segment on it, and because he had the same experience with his son.
Right.
And so it was a very touching, moving experience. But, that's an example of not having any clues, any signs. There was nothing going on that they could see outwardly. So we are talking with, a really, really tough situation in how we reach our athletes. And I really feel like if you had options out there, preventative, prior to reactive, then I think we're setting our athletes to be successful. I know their foundation, the Helinski 3 Foundation, is about creating programming. They want mental health programming in all D1 colleges, and I'm on the East Coast, and I want the exact same thing. I think that we need to create mental health programming that includes signs and symptoms and some other techniques and tools that our athletes can use. That's actually one reason why I'm here, is that I did create this collegiate athlete mental health app.
Yes.
And on that app, that provides signs and symptoms. It provides contact for athlete to athlete. You mentioned Austin Cannon.
Yes.
Austin and I had a great conversation in April, and I told him what I wanted to do for the app. And he was like, I love it. I think it's awesome. I'm all in. But I really want you to create something that is athlete to athlete, because he felt like the peer support relationship was really important. And I know that's part of his calling now, as part of his giving back to the community for supporting him. He is really pushing his breakdown of talk about collegiate athlete mental health one-to-one, athlete to athlete. And so you will find on my app, that is the very first athlete to athlete Twitter handle, and that is the Speak Up Movement by Austin Cannon.
Which is fantastic, and one of the things that sprung up from Austin's, again, just horrible experience back in the fall of 16, and I was just, that night I sat down and talked to him. I was just amazed at how open he could be about it, how frank he could be about it, but how excited he was to take the experience that he had and hope to make sure that tons of other people who may have those signs, may have those symptoms, would not go down the same road. They wouldn't have to go as far as he did to be able to get the help that they needed. And so I applaud Austin 1,000%. What he's done has been nothing short of remarkable.
I agree. And I always tell him now he's a lion. You know, he has, he left school, took care of what he needed to, and now let me tell you what, I feel like he's the poster child for success.
Yeah.
He faced it, he came back, and he didn't hide what happened. He is being very clear. This is what happened to me, but now look at me now. He is Virginia Tech O-line. I know he's going to be completely successful, and I love what he's doing. I love his character. I love all of the things that he is about, and it's bigger than just him.
Right.
And that's more amazing, I think, than anything.
Atlee High School, very proud of Mr. Austin Cannon. Betsy Cutler is our guest here in the Red Zone, CEO at College Wellness Programs. How long has this app been developed, and how can people get it?
Awesome. It's taken me a year to develop it. As I said, I looked at all the research and tried to make sure I hit those things for our athletes. It was released 3 weeks ago. It's very new.
Wow.
So it's available on the App Store, Android, Play, all that stuff.
So you can, whether you're Apple or Android, whatever team you're on, you can get it. You can,
absolutely. And it is open for anybody to download. It's free. I do have a version that can be developed per athletic department. So I'll just quickly show you. I know they can't see on the air, but you can see that it can be done in the athletic departments, logos, colors, and it provides that athlete specific information for their university.
For their college or university.
Yep.
So, and again, man, I'm a big believer in branding. If you are able to make that connection, and the student athlete downloads the app and they can see, hey, there's something available here.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. We've talked a lot about the Alabamas and the Division I's and Austin's at Virginia Tech, but I can walk to Randolph-Macon in 8 minutes from where we're sitting right now. Obviously, the stigmas and the issues are at Division III. They're in NAIA. They're in junior college. They're everywhere. How can we, just as concerned citizens, learn how to tell that there might be an issue, and also avail ourselves to people so that they know there's a way out. There are people who love me. There are people who are going to help me no matter what.
I think that, oh my gosh, that is really, that's a tough question, but I also think that there are a lot of things that we can do. We can be involved. All of us have some sort of athletic, we wouldn't be listening to this if we didn't have some sort of athletic team that we were looking for. Right. Exactly. And you know what? Reach out. Let them know that you're there. I can tell you the number of tweets that we all have seen today that is just let them know that you are here. Check in on people. One of my big advocacies, as well as for parents to know, it's okay for you to check in on your kid if they are a collegiate athlete. It's okay to ask questions of your athletic department. It's okay to know what are their procedures, what are their programs, and if they don't have any, ask for them. And I've actually started moving down to high school entities. I feel like we have now, like I said earlier, we're asking 18, 19, and 20-year-olds to know signs and symptoms. We need to start in high school.
I could not agree with you more. Could not. And I'm sitting here thinking, and of course, with 4 Twitter feeds that I run with the RVA Sports Network, I'm constantly on that particular brand of social media as well as others. But I hope, and maybe you can comment on this in terms of perspective, that as devastating as what happened to Tyler was, we are in an age to where people can immediately pour out on social media and go, we can prevent this from happening. We can stop this. Had I known, I would have reached out. And other people who may be in the dark as a student athlete may be on Twitter, and they may see this and they see the outpouring and they go, well, maybe there's an outpouring for me too. Maybe there's hope for me too. I'm hoping, I know there's a lot of things that are negative about social media, but I'm certainly hoping that this is one huge positive we can gather from it.
Absolutely. And I would say, for example, on my app, I have all sorts of national feeds so that they can go on and talk to. There's crisis text messaging. There is, and that's the one thing about the app, is that it is confidential. That athlete can use it whether they are in their dorm or if they're away at a conference tournament in Tennessee. And on there are ways where they can connect to an Austin Cannon or connect to other college facilities. There's Active Minds is on there. There's ways that they can connect to somebody immediately where they are and just say, hey, we're here to support you. Even if they just want to reach out anonymously, there are ways and avenues for them to do that, just to find that they're not in it by themselves.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned moving into the high school realm. What do you think some of the challenges are going to be in order to make that successful transition and help the 14 to 17, 18-year-old market understand the same opportunities for them and let them know that we understand the challenges that they're experiencing?
It's definitely a stair-stepped look. I'm looking at it. What I have designed right now is the webinars that first I've given them a picture of what is the day in the life of a college athlete.
Okay.
Our 14 to 17-year-olds really have no idea the expectation of their time from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on a daily basis, and that, we can say that's D1. Let's move down to D2 and D3. You still have workouts. You still have morning sessions that you may have to wake up before your classes. So there's a lot of information that they just don't know. It's glamorized in their mind. And so I think if we start first with reality and say, this is kind of what your day would look like if you were to play basketball at Randolph-Macon. These are the expectations that you're going to have. If you play football at Randolph-Macon, these are kind of the expectations that will be of you.
Right.
And then kind of backtrack to there and go, now can you see how your time is taken from you and how that can maybe affect you taking care of yourself? And you kind of do it as in a backwards. First you talk about what it looks like, and then you talk about what are some of the issues that can come from that in regards to sleeping, eating. Are you working out even though you're not in your season?
Right.
And so then you back all the way back, and then that's when you give them the signs and symptoms.
So you give them the full picture of what, for some of them, and this ties into our basketball conversation earlier tonight with Coach Bishop about the dream that is being sold. And it concerns me when I get on social media, and I am very adverse. If you're in the class of 2023 or beyond right now, I don't really care if you can score 20 points a game in an AAU game. I don't, because you're 12 or 13 years old. And when you're 12 and 13 years old, you're going through major changes in your life. And the last thing you need to be figuring out is whether you're going to go play at UNC or Duke. There's just, at 12 or 13, I was struggling with what to eat for lunch.
Exactly.
There's the expectation.
Recruiting now is crazy.
Oh, it is. And that there's one of the negative aspects of social media,
Right.
I think.
Right.
And we have to be very careful about how we glamorize that, because it can become this pressure zone, so to speak, to where we start putting student athletes in areas in that 14 to 17-year-old age bracket that they don't need to be in. There can be some problems that develop there.
Absolutely agreed. And then, then comes the mental health issue. And the positive about finding a 14 or 17-year-old is hopefully that their parents are engaged.
Yes.
And so that's the positive thing. And so I also have seminars for parents so that I can let them know signs and symptoms that they can be looking for and actual questions that they can ask of their programs that their kids are in, and also questions that they can ask if their kids are looking to go to college athletics.
Right.
Just really preparatory stuff for them.
All right, Betsy, as we wrap up, what's the best way to get in touch with you if people have questions about what you do or what direction they need to go in a situation, either with their child or their team, or their college, their high school? What's the best way to let you know about that?
Well, I absolutely go to my website, www.collegewellnessprograms.com, or email me, Betsy Cutler at collegewellnessprograms.com, and I'd be glad to help you guys answer any of the questions you need.
And the official name of the app, if we're going to the store to download it, what do we search?
College Athlete Mental Health.
It's very simple. Just type that into the search engine, either on Google Play or the Apple Store, and you'll find it there, just 3 weeks old. So brand new to the marketplace, and it's free.
Yes.
Very exciting.
So,
Betsy Cutler, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation, and one that is well needed, and we need more of them to help the next generation. As again, I said at the outset, we can see when they hurt themselves physically. We need to know when they're suffering mentally as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob, so much. I appreciate you for going here on this conversation.
No problem. Betsy Cutler, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll come back after this final timeout in the Red Zone. We'll get you caught up on, again, the changes in high school football because of the weather, with Florence coming in later this week.